The roar of jet engines is a sound we trust. It means power, reliability, safety, the force that lifts hundreds of tons of steel into the sky. But on a cold winter morning in 1991, that trust was shattered. Moments after takeoff, the engines of a Scandinavian Airlines jet exploded. The passengers inside had no idea if they would live to see another sunrise, yet what followed has become one of aviation's most astonishing stories of survival, quick thinking, and sheer luck. This is the untold story of SAS Flight 751, a flight that lost everything in the air, but somehow brought everyone back alive. Number 1. A routine morning. It was December the 27th, 1991. The world was winding down from Christmas celebrations. In Scandinavia, snow blanketed the earth and the airports hummed with holiday travelers eager to get home. At Stockholm's Arlanda Airport, Scandinavian Airlines Flight 751 prepared for departure. The aircraft was a McDonnell Douglas MD-81, a twin-engine jet known for its reliability. At the controls sat two experienced pilots, Captain Stefan G. Rasmussen and First Officer Ulf Zettermark. Both were seasoned professionals, respected by colleagues, confident in the aircraft they flew. The destination was Copenhagen, Denmark, and Aachen. Just a short hop south, on board were 129 passengers and 6 crew members. It was supposed to be an uneventful flight, one of thousands the airline had completed without incident. But that morning, something invisible and deadly had already set the stage for disaster. Number 2. The invisible danger. What no one realized was that the MD-81 had been parked overnight in freezing weather. Tiny clear ice crystals had formed on the upper surfaces of its wings, invisible to the naked eye. Unlike the thick frost that ground crews are trained to look for, this clear ice was nearly undetectable. As the plane taxied out ground, de-icing crews sprayed the wings, but the danger wasn't fully eliminated. Beneath the wing skin, cold, soaked fuel from previous flights kept temperatures low. That meant as soon as the aircraft accelerated, chunks of hidden ice began breaking loose, and the engines mounted behind the fuselage were in the perfect position to swallow that ice. Number 3. Takeoff. At 8:47 a.m., Flight 751 thundered down the runway. The Me-81 lifted gracefully into the winter sky. Inside, passengers settled into their seats, some reading newspapers, others gazing out the frosted windows. But in the cockpit, the first hints of trouble appeared. A strange rumbling sound echoed through the cabin. Then a terrifying bang. The left engine surged violently. Ice had broken off from the wing and been sucked into the compressor blades. The impact destroyed the delicate balance of airflow inside the engine, causing a compressor stall. Passengers later described seeing flames shooting out of the left engine. Moments later, the right engine suffered the same fate. In less than 2 minutes after takeoff, both engines, the only thing keeping 135 souls aloft, had failed. Number 4. Fire in the sky. The cockpit erupted in alarms. Warning lights flashed. Both engines were surging, then spitting fire. The crew tried to stabilize the engines, throttling back, then forward, following their training, but the ice had done its damage. The fan blades were shattered. Airflow was disrupted beyond repair. Then came the unthinkable. Both engines flamed out completely. The MD-81 was now a powerless glider, dropping through the icy Scandinavian air. In the cabin, passengers felt the terrifying silence. The familiar hum of jet engines was gone, replaced by the eerie rush of wind. Many thought the end had come, but in the cockpit, Captain Rasmussen refused to surrender. Number 5. The impossible challenge. Imagine sitting at the controls of a 36-ton jet with no engines. You have seconds to make life or death decisions. Every move determines whether you crash into a forest, a lake, or, if you're lucky, an open field. The Me-81 wasn't designed to glide like a sailplane. It descended fast, bleeding altitude with every passing second. The crew declared an emergency, but there was no time for rescue. Captain Rasmussen scanned the snowy landscape below. Fields, forests, lakes, all covered in white. He had to choose a landing site, and he had to choose it now. Number 6. The miracle landing. At 3,000 feet, Rasmussen spotted a field near Gatra, a village north of Stockholm. It wasn't ideal. Trees surrounded it. The surface was uneven, but it was their only chance. The captain aimed the powerless jet toward the clearing. Passengers braced as the ground rushed up. Then, with incredible skill, Rasmussen flared the Me-81, leveling the nose just above the treetops. The aircraft clipped trees, ripping off both wings. Fuel tanks ruptured, but miraculously there was no explosion. The fuselage skidded across the frozen ground, finally grinding to a halt in pieces. Silence, then screams. Then the miraculous sound of people moving, alive. Number 7. Against all odds, against every law of probability, everyone survived. Some passengers sustained serious injuries, but there were no fatalities. Not one. The reason was simple: extraordinary piloting. Rasmussen and Cedarmark had kept the jet level, absorbing the impact in the wings and engines, preventing the fuselage from breaking apart catastrophically. Experts later called it one of the greatest feats of airmanship in modern aviation history. Number 8. The investigation. After the crash, investigators combed through the wreckage. They quickly identified the culprit: clear ice contamination, the MD. 81's engines were not designed to handle large chunks of ice breaking loose from the wings. Once ingested, the ice caused catastrophic engine surges. Worse, the aircraft's automatic systems had made things harder. The engine thrust computer had mistakenly advanced throttle power, worsening the surges instead of preventing them. In short, it was a deadly chain reaction: ice engine surge, computer error, and total engine failure. The result could have been tragedy, but thanks to the crew, it wasn't. Number 9. The heroes of Flight 751 in the aftermath of the near disaster. Headlines across Scandinavia called Captain Stefan G. Rasmussen a hero. Newspapers described him as the man who refused to surrender to the laws of physics, the man who turned a powerless jet into a glider and gave 135 people back their lives. Yet Rasmussen himself never embraced that title. Soft spoken and deeply humble, he insisted that what happened was not about one man, but about a team of professionals who each did their job with precision under impossible pressure. First Officer Ulf Cedarmark played an equally critical role. While Rasmussen wrestled with the controls, Cedarmark handled communications, checklists, and system monitoring. In those terrifying moments, he remained calm, feeding Rasmussen crucial information and ensuring that decisions were made swiftly but carefully. The two men operated as one mind, a perfect example of cockpit resource management, the very principle modern aviation depends on. Then there was the cabin crew, while the cockpit fought to keep the aircraft aloft, flight attendants faced their own crisis. A cabin full of frightened passengers, alarms blaring, the smell of smoke filling the air. Their training told them panic could spread faster than fire, and so they became the anchor of calm. They reassured parents, steadied crying children, and prepared everyone for an emergency landing. Number 10. Lessons learned. The story of SAS Flight 751 is not only about survival, it's about transformation. What happened on that cold January morning in 1991 forced the aviation industry to confront vulnerabilities it had long overlooked. From the ashes of near disaster came reforms that continue to safeguard millions of travelers today. One of the most important lessons was about ice ingestion. The MD-81's engines had sucked in ice that had formed unnoticed on the wings during taxi and takeoff. When the engine spooled up, the ice broke free, entered the turbines, and caused catastrophic surges and flameouts. Before this, few fully appreciated just how dangerous frozen slush could be. After SAS 751, the industry had no choice but to adapt. Airlines refined their de-icing and anti-icing procedures. New guidelines were written, requiring more thorough inspections of wings and critical surfaces. Pilots were trained to recognize subtle signs of ice accumulation and to take them seriously. No longer could anyone assume that a quick spray of de-icing fluid was enough. The engineering community also absorbed the lesson. Aircraft manufacturers and engine designers went back to the drawing board, rethinking how engines handled sudden surges of ice and debris. Systems were redesigned to be more resilient. Sensors were improved and redundancy was built in so that if one system failed, another could compensate. SAS 751 highlighted the fact that safety could never be static. It had to evolve as new risks were revealed. Just as important were the lessons for flight crews. The simultaneous loss of both engines was something most pilots never expected to face. Yet Captain Stefan G. Rasmussen and his crew proved that with calm leadership and strict adherence to training, even the unthinkable could be managed. In the aftermath, airlines around the world updated simulator training programs to include scenarios once considered too unlikely to practice. Conclusion: engines exploded, lives saved. The story of SAS Flight 751 is not just another aviation incident. It is a paradox wrapped in fire, steel, and human courage. Engines exploded, a powerless jet plunged toward the earth, and for a terrifying few minutes, everyone on board stared into the abyss of certain death, and yet, against all odds, they survived. Not one life was lost. At 30,000 feet, human life hangs by a thread. A single failure can trigger catastrophe, and modern passengers often take for granted the fragile ballet of engineering, physics, and human vigilance that keeps them aloft. Flight 751 revealed that fragility in the most violent way possible. The sound of exploding engines, the flames streaking across the Scandinavian sky, the sudden silence when the roar of power turned into the glide of a dead aircraft. All of it reminded the world just how thin the line is between routine and disaster. But within that fragility lies resilience. What saved 135 souls that day was not just luck. It was preparation, training, and the refusal of human beings to surrender to fear. The crew of Flight 751 turned chaos into discipline. They drew upon their drills, their instincts, and above all, their courage. Every decision made in those desperate minutes mattered. Every action, from controlling the glide to preparing passengers for impact, was measured against the ticking clock of survival. The day engines exploded mid-air, and what happened next shocked the world, not because lives were lost, but because every single one was saved. It remains a reminder written in flame and survival that even in the darkest plunge toward Earth, human courage can pull life back from the brink.